In March 1791, the second volume of a two-part study of the historical buildings of Scotland was published in London. This was a remarkable work by a remarkable man. But despite its erudition, despite its beautiful illustrations by the author himself, despite the other larger studies he had previously done of the antiquities of England and Wales and subsequently Ireland, this indefatigable man and his encyclopedic work would probably be all but entirely forgotten if it was not that this second volume of his Scottish studies contained, exceptionally, a poem which is known all around the world today, because it's one of the best known compositions of Scotland's best known poet, Robert Burns. My name is William Kinnaird. I'm a Blue Badge guide with the Scottish Tourist Guides Association. The poem is, of course, Tam Shanter. If you're unfamiliar with it, I'd like to introduce you to it here. But even if you do know it well, I hope that some of the background I'll share after this summary will be informative for you and enhance your appreciation of this great work. Tam Shanter is written partly in Scots and partly in English. To get an idea of what it's about, let's go to the original setting in Alloway in southwest Scotland, to a park called the Poet's Path. The Poet's Path is dedicated to one of the most famous of Burns's poems, Tam Shanter. And it's illustrated all the way along the path with a series of weather vanes, which in silhouette form give illustrations of particular scenes from the poem. Now, this poem tells of Tam from the farm Shanter, and Tam had a tendency after market days, once he had some money in his pocket, to go into the local hostelries, meet up with his friends and spend the whole evening there drinking, regardless of his wife Kate at home. We catch up with Tam in this tavern, and he's there with his friends, and one in particular, suitor Johnny, a great bosom friend of Tam's. He's drinking, he's enjoying himself, giving no thought whatsoever as to how he's going to tackle this raging storm outside, how he's going to get home, back to his wife. And he's getting a bit too familiar with the landlady as well. He's having a great time. But Burns tells us that all good things come to an end eventually. But pleasures are like poppies spread. You seize the flower, the bloom is shed. Or as the snow falls on the river, a moment white, then melts forever. Memorable lines indeed. But then Burns arrests our attention with an even more striking line when he says that no man can tether time nor tide. The hour approaches, Tam maun ride. In other words, Tam realises finally, around midnight perhaps, that he can't stay there all night in the inn. And so, reluctantly no doubt, he gets up, goes out into the wild night, finds his trusty horse Meg waiting there, and probably with a bit of help from his friends, gets onto Meg's back, sets off down the road. We left Tam as he came out of the pub, got onto his old faithful horse Meg, and galloped off down the road. And that's when the real fear set in, because he remembered the words of his wife when she prophesied that late or soon thou wouldst be found deep drowned in Doon, or catched by warlocks in the mirk, by Alloway's old haunted kirk. Because indeed, Tam's way took him past the old ruined church of Alloway. But as Tam approached the church that night, he could see there was something strange about it, because glimmering through groaning trees, Kirk Alloway seemed in a bleeze. Through ilka bore its beams were glancing, and loud resounded mirth and dancing. curiosity overcoming his fears and ignoring his horse Meg's resistance, Tam approached the church and looked in through a little window. And he sees the reason for the sounds of merriment. Witches and warlocks dancing and prancing. Most of them toothless hags, but there is one young witch whom Burns calls Nanny. She's wearing only a short shift, or cutty sark as it's called in Old Scots. Tam is entranced. Till first day caper, then another, Tam lost his reason altogether and calls out, "Well done, cutty sark!" And in an instant, all was dark. Tam spurs on his horse Meg. The hellish mob is rushing after them, and they all plunge down the road towards the Big of Doon. Ah Tam, they'll get thy faring. In hell they'll roast thee like a herring. In vain thy Kate awaits thee coming. Kate soon will be a woeful woman. Now do thy speedy utmost, Meg, and make the keystone o' the brig. There at them thou thy tail may toss, a running stream they darena cross. But ere the keystone she could make, the fiend to tail she had to shake, for Nanny far before the rest hard upon noble Maggie pressed, and flew at Tam with furious ettle, but little kent she Maggie's mettle. A spring brought off her master hale, but left behind her ain grey tail. The carlin clocked her by the rump, and left poor Maggie scarce a stump. Burns concludes his poem with a moral, warning the reader that if you're ever tempted to overindulge in whisky and flirt about with women, remember Tam O'Shanter and his mare.